There are some nights when there are some nights when I still wake up to the sound of the foghorn, even though I live 200 miles inland now, even though that lighthouse was demolished 3 years ago. They said it was structural damage, salt erosion, budget cuts. But I know the real reason they tore it down. I know what was waiting beneath it. And I know I'm the only keeper who ever left that place alive. It's been 7 years since my summer at Beacon Point Lighthouse. 7 years since I was 23, and stupid enough to think isolation sounded romantic. I was fresh out of college, drowning in student loans, and when I saw the posting for a seasonal lighthouse keeper, room and board included, no experience necessary, I jumped at it. The job listing was sparse, 4 months, May through August. Maintain the light, log weather conditions, minimal contact with the mainland. Perfect, I thought. I'd write my novel, find myself, all that pretentious nonsense young people tell themselves. The lighthouse stood on a rocky outcrop called Widow's Finger, accessible only by a narrow causeway that flooded at high tide twice a day. The structure itself was over 150 years old, white tower, red cap, the classic New England design, quaint in the photos, lonely in person. I arrived on a gray morning in early May. The previous keeper, a man named Duncan, met me at the causeway. He was probably 60, weathered face, hands like gnarled driftwood. He didn't shake my hand, just looked at me with these flat, exhausted eyes. "You read the manual?" he asked. I held up the thin pamphlet the agency had sent. "Memorized it." He almost smiled. "Almost. That's not the manual I mean." Duncan led me inside, without another word. The lighthouse was exactly what you'd expect. Circular rooms stacked like coins, narrow spiral stairs, everything smelling of salt and rust and old wood. He showed me the living quarters on the second floor, the equipment room on the third, and finally the lantern room at the top. But it was the logbook that changed everything. Duncan pulled it from a locked drawer in the equipment room, not the official weather log. This was different, leather-bound, thick as a dictionary, pages yellowed and warped. Some entries were recent, others looked centuries old. "This is the real manual," Duncan said. "The protocol. Every keeper since 1873 has followed it. You will too, if you're smart." I laughed, actually laughed. Looking back, that was the last moment of my old life, the life where I thought I understood how the world worked. "Is this some kind of hazing thing?" I asked. Duncan's expression didn't change. "There are rules. 9 of them. You follow them exactly. No exceptions, no experiments. You do this, you'll make it to September. You don't." He trailed off, eyes drifting to the window, to the gray sea beyond. He opened the logbook. The first page was written in careful, old-fashioned script. The ink was brown. I hoped it was just aged, but part of me knew better. The lighthouse keeper's protocol. Duncan read them aloud, slowly, like a priest reciting scripture. Rule 1. The light must never go dark between sunset and sunrise. If the bulb fails, you have 7 minutes to replace it. Count them carefully. Rule 2. Every night at exactly 9:47 p.m., stand in the lantern room and face east. Close your eyes. Do not open them until you hear 3 distinct bell chimes. There is no bell at this lighthouse. Rule 3. If you see a figure standing on the rocks at low tide, do not acknowledge it. Do not wave. Do not shine your light on it. It is not a person in distress. Rule 4. The door to the basement must remain locked at all times. You were not given a key. This is intentional. Rule 5. If you hear knocking from inside the walls, knock back twice, then say aloud, "Not yet." This will satisfy them until morning. Rule 6. Never count the stairs while climbing the tower. If you count anyway and reach a number higher than 63, descend immediately and start over. Rule 7. On foggy nights, you may hear voices calling your name from the water. They will sound like people you know. They are not. Do not answer. Do not go outside. Rule 8. Once per week, at any time you choose, you must write your full name in the logbook. Use your own blood. A pinprick is sufficient. Rule 9. If you see a door that wasn't there before, especially one that appears to lead outside from an inner wall, do not open it. Mark the time in the logbook and wait. It will be gone by morning. I stared at him. You're kidding. I followed these rules for 11 years. Duncan said quietly. I'm still here. The keeper before me followed them for 19 years. He retired to Florida. The keeper before him didn't follow them. They found his shoes on the rocks. Just his shoes. This is insane. This is the job. Duncan closed the logbook and handed it to me. You can leave now. I'll tell the agency. You changed your mind. No shame in it. But if you stay, you follow the protocol. All of it. Exactly as written. I should have left. God, I should have left right then. But I was 23 and broke and convinced I was too rational to believe in ghost stories. I'll stay, I said. Duncan nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer, like they all did. Then there's one more thing, he said. The rules work. But they don't tell you why. That's the hardest part. Living here, following the protocol, never knowing what you're actually protecting yourself from, or what's protecting you. He left that afternoon on the last ferry, before the tide came in. I watched him go from the lantern room, this small figure disappearing down the causeway, never once looking back. And then I was alone. For the first week I pretended the protocol was just superstition. I followed it, mostly because I had nothing else to do, but I didn't believe it. Rule 1 made sense. That was just basic lighthouse operation. Rule 8. I found absurd. I pricked my finger and scrawled my name, feeling ridiculous. But the others, those were harder to dismiss. The figure on the rocks appeared on my third night. I saw it during my evening rounds. Just before sunset, a silhouette standing on the eastern outcrop, perfectly still, facing the lighthouse. My first instinct was to radio the mainland. Someone was stranded. But then I remembered Rule 3. Do not acknowledge it. I watched through binoculars. It looked human, wore what might have been old fisherman's clothes, but it never moved, not even when waves crashed over the rocks. And as the sun set and darkness came, it didn't leave. It just stood there, water swirling around its legs. I didn't shine my light on it. I don't know why I listened, but I didn't. By morning, it was gone. The first person from the mainland I spoke to was Marty, the supply boat operator. He came every Wednesday, bringing groceries, mail, fuel. He was probably 50, round face, always wore this orange windbreaker that was too big for him. How you settling in? He asked, unloading boxes on my second Wednesday. Fine. Quiet. That's the point, isn't it? He glanced up at the lighthouse. Duncan, give you the talk. About the rules? So he did. Marty straightened, wiping his hands. You following them? Are they real? He considered that. I've been running supplies out here for 15 years. Every keeper who followed the protocol made it to the end of their contract. Every keeper who didn't, he shook his head. Well, there's been 3 of those. None of them made it past 6 weeks. What happened to them? Officially, one had a breakdown and quit. One drowned in a swimming accident. One just disappeared, presumed fell from the rocks. Marty met my eyes. Unofficially, they stopped following the rules. How do you know? Because I found the logbook entries. Or the lack of them. Blood signatures missed, times when the light went dark too long. He shouldered his empty crates. Look, I don't know what's out here. I don't want to know, but I know the rules work. So do yourself a favor, stop asking why, and just follow them. The other person I encountered was stranger. I called her the Tidewalker, though I never learned her real name. She appeared on my 6th week, during one of the rare times I walked the beach low tide. I saw her from a distance, a young woman, maybe 30, wearing a gray dress that looked decades out of style. She was collecting something from the tide pools, placing objects in a canvas bag. Hello, I called. She didn't respond, didn't even look up. I approached closer. Are you from the mainland? Do you need help? She straightened then, turned to face me. Her eyes were dark, not just brown, but fully dark, like looking into deep water. And she smiled, not warmly, just smiled. You're the new keeper, she said. Her voice had an odd quality, like it was echoing from somewhere distant. Yes, I know who you are. She glanced at the lighthouse. You've been good so far. Kept the protocol, mostly. Mostly? Rule 2, last Tuesday. You opened your eyes at 9:49, heard only 2 bells, got impatient. She tilted her head. There should have been 3. My blood went cold. She was right. I had opened my eyes early. How did she know? Who are you? Someone who has an interest in the lighthouse remaining functional. She turned back to her tide pool. The rules exist for a reason. Even the ones that seem arbitrary, especially those ones, the things that wait here, they're bound by rules too. The protocol is how we keep both sides honest. Both sides. But she was already walking away, down the beach, her gray dress trailing in the sand. I started to follow, then stopped. She was heading toward the section of rocks where I'd seen the standing figure, where the tide was starting to come in. Wait, I called. It's not safe. She didn't turn, just kept walking. And as I watched, she stepped off the beach onto the rocks, into water that was now waist deep, and kept going, walking under the surface, not swimming, walking. She never came up for air. I ran to the spot, searching the water. Nothing. No body. No bubbles. Just waves. I didn't sleep that night. After seeing the Tidewalker, I started taking the protocol seriously, not just following it, studying it. I read every entry in the logbook, going back decades, and patterns emerged. Different keepers had different experiences, but certain details repeated. The figure on the rocks appeared most often during new moons. The knocking in the walls intensified during storms. And Rule 9, the appearing door, that one had the most dramatic consequences when broken. 3 keepers had opened the phantom door. Their entries stopped immediately after. One keeper, a man named Thomas Greer in 1923, had written extensively about his experiences. His entries became increasingly frantic as his term progressed. June 12th saw the figure again. This time it waved. I did not wave back, as per Rule 3, though every instinct screamed to help. June 18th. The knocking is constant now. I knock back and say the words, but I wonder what would happen if I said something else. What if I said yes instead of not yet? June 30th. A door appeared in the living quarters, leading seemingly into solid rock. I can hear the ocean through it, though that's impossible. The sound is different from the ocean outside, deeper, hungrier. July 2nd. The door is still there. I marked the time, 11:47 p.m. The rule says to wait until morning, but what if I just opened it a crack? What if I just looked? July 3rd. I looked. God forgive me. I looked. There was nothing on the other side, just darkness. But the darkness moved. It noticed me. I shut the door immediately, but it was too late. It knows I'm here now. It's always known, but now it knows. July 4th. The light failed tonight. I replaced the bulb in 4 minutes, but for those 4 minutes, everything was dark, and in that darkness, I heard it coming up the stairs, heavy footsteps, wet, getting closer. The light came back on just as my door began to open. July 7th. I can't do this anymore. I can't. But the causeway is flooded and won't be passable for 6 more hours. I have to make it until dawn. I have to. The entry stopped there. According to records, Thomas Greer's body was found on the rocks 3 days later. The official report said he fell, but the logbook told a different story. The next keeper, a woman named Sarah Chen, had written a single entry after finding Greer's final logs. He broke Rule 9. Then he was too slow with Rule 1. Whatever's down there, it needs the darkness. The light is all that keeps it in the deep. My own experiences intensified as summer deepened. In late June, I had my first real test of Rule 7. It was a foggy night, the kind where the world shrinks to just a few feet of visibility. I was in the living quarters, trying to read, when I heard it. Michael? Michael, help me. My mother's voice, unmistakable, coming from outside, from the direction of the rocks. Michael, I'm hurt. Please. I was halfway to the door before I remembered. Rule 7. They will sound like people you know, but it was so perfectly her voice, the inflection, the way she said my name. How could something fake that? Michael, I'm slipping. Please, I can't hold on. I stood at the door, hand on the handle, shaking. Every instinct screamed to go help her. That was my mother. She needed me. Michael. I stepped back from the door, closed my eyes, started reciting the protocol aloud, all 9 rules, forcing myself to focus on the words instead of the voice. The voice outside changed. Still my mother's, but wrong now. Angry. Michael, open this door. Open this door right now. Then it wasn't my mother anymore. It was Duncan's voice. You're supposed to help people in distress. That's the whole point of a lighthouse. Open the door. Then Marty, I'm bringing supplies. Let me in. Then the Tidewalker, you looked when you shouldn't have. Now you have to pay the price. Then voices I'd never heard, all speaking at once, layered and overlapping, calling my name, demanding entry. I stayed inside until sunrise. By dawn, the voices had stopped. The fog had cleared, and when I checked the rocks at low tide, I found deep gouges in the stone, like something had been clawing at them. The marks led down into the water. I marked the event in the logbook. My entry was shaky. June 24th, Rule 7 tested. Did not open door. Something very angry about that. Blood signature, Michael James Rivera. I pricked my finger, added my name in blood, closed the book, and tried to forget the sound of my mother screaming my name. The next major incident came in mid-July. I had been careful about Rule 6, never counting the stairs, but one night, exhausted, I counted without thinking. 61, 62, 63, 64. I froze. There should only be 63 steps, but my foot had touched 64 and 65 and 66. The stairwell had somehow stretched. The walls looked the same, but the dimensions were wrong. I could look down and see the base of the stairs impossibly far below, could look up and see the lantern room unreachably distant. And there were things on the stairs with me, not on my spiral, on other spirals that suddenly existed in the same space, parallel staircases that overlapped mine. I could see figures climbing them, descending them, trapped in their own loops. Some looked human, others didn't. One of them turned to look at me. Its face was wrong, too many eyes placed randomly. It smiled. I did what Rule 6 commanded, descended immediately, started over. This time I recited the protocol instead of counting. By the time I reached the top, the real top, I was drenched in sweat, but the stairwell had returned to normal. In the logbook, I found an entry from Duncan, dated 3 months before I arrived, counted stairs by accident, reached 127, saw things I can't describe. One of them tried to follow me down. Rule 6 isn't just about getting lost. It's about staying in the right version of the lighthouse. There are others, older ones. They're still here, overlapping ours. Don't look too carefully at the walls. Sometimes you can see through. I tested this carefully over the next few days. He was right. If I looked at certain angles, especially in dim light, I could see the walls weren't quite solid, could see other rooms, other times, bleeding through. In one, I saw a keeper from decades ago, maintaining equipment that didn't exist anymore. In another, I saw something that had never been human at all, coiled in a room that shouldn't exist. I stopped looking at the walls. In early August, Marty brought something unexpected with my supplies, a visitor. His name was Dr. Emil Voss, and he introduced himself as a researcher studying folkloric maritime traditions. He was maybe 40, expensive coat, city softness. I'm writing a paper on lighthouse superstitions, he explained. The agency mentioned you might have encountered the protocol, I believe it's called. I didn't like this. What about it? I'd like to examine the logbook, document the rules, interview you about your experiences. He smiled. I'm paying well. Double your weekly salary for a few hours of your time. I looked at Marty. He shrugged. He cleared it with the agency. Says he'll stay on the mainland, just wants to talk. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't articulate why, and the money was tempting. So I agreed to one interview to take place via radio that evening. That was my first mistake. At 7 p.m., I radioed the mainland station. Dr. Voss's voice came through, friendly and professional. Thank you for doing this, Michael. Let's start simple. Have you been following the protocol exactly as written? Yes. All 9 rules? No exceptions. No exceptions. Fascinating. And have you experienced anything that might support the rule's apparent purpose? I hesitated. Define support. Anomalous events, things that shouldn't be possible. I'm a skeptic, Michael, but I'm an honest skeptic. If the protocol has genuine protective function, I want to know. So I told him. The figure on the rocks, the voices in the fog, the extended stairwell, everything. He listened quietly, then asked, and have you ever considered testing the rules? Seeing what happens if you break them deliberately, under controlled conditions? No, people die when they break the rules. People die anyway, Voss said. Correlation isn't causation. What if the rules are just nocebo effect? What if believing in them creates the danger? I don't think that's how it works. But you don't know. Nobody knows. Everyone's too afraid to test it properly. His voice took on an eager quality. What if we ran an experiment? Tonight, break 1 rule, just 1. Rule 2, perhaps. It seems the least dangerous. Keep your eyes open. See if anything actually happens. Absolutely not. I'd compensate you. Significantly. No. Michael, think about this. We could be advancing human knowledge, proving these rules are either genuinely protective or just. I shut off the radio, but the seed was planted. I should have left it there. Should have marked Dr. Voss as a threat and refused all further contact. But that night, lying awake, I kept thinking about what he'd said. What if the rules were just superstition? What if I was wasting every night on pointless rituals? At 9:47 p.m., I stood in the lantern room as required, faced east, closed my eyes, and this time I paid attention to what happened. With my eyes closed, I could hear more clearly. The ocean, of course, the wind, but also something else, a low vibration, almost below hearing. It came from the water, rising in pitch gradually. Then, the first bell. Clear and crystalline, though there was no bell. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The second bell. The vibration grew stronger. I should have waited for the third, but Dr. Voss's words echoed. What if believing in them creates the danger? I opened my eyes. The world had changed. The ocean was still there, but it was wrong. The water had turned black, not dark blue, but absolute, lightless black. And it was rising, not like a tide, rising straight up, defying gravity, a wall of water, climbing toward the sky. And in that water, I saw things swimming, vast things, things that couldn't exist. The largest was still distant, but even from here, I could sense its size, something huge beyond comprehension, deep beneath the surface, stirring, ancient, hungry. And then I understood. The lighthouse wasn't protecting ships. It was protecting the world. The light, the constant light, was a ward, a boundary. As long as it burned, as long as the protocol was maintained, the things in the water stayed beneath, stayed bound. But the bindings were old, and they required maintenance. The rules weren't superstition. They were part of the spell, the ancient agreement, the price for keeping the darkness below. Rule 2 specifically, the closed eyes at 9:47. That was when the bindings were weakest, when something pushed closest to the surface. If you kept your eyes closed, if you waited for all three bells, it didn't see you, didn't know you were watching. But I'd looked, and now it knew. The third bell never rang. Instead, the black water surged, a wave impossibly large, moving toward the lighthouse. I stumbled backward, certain I was about to die. Then, just before impact, the wave stopped, frozen in midair, meters from the tower, held back by something I couldn't see. The light. The constant light was still on. And that was the real rule. Rule 1, the foundation of everything. The light must never go dark. Slowly the water receded. The ocean returned to normal. The vast thing beneath sank back into depth. But I could still feel it down there, aware of me now, waiting. I grabbed the logbook with shaking hands and found an entry I'd somehow missed, written in the margin of the first page in different ink. Rule 0, unspoken. The light is not just a light. It is a seal. Break any rule and weaken the seal slightly. It will repair itself by dawn. But if the light goes dark, even for seconds, the seal breaks completely. What rises then cannot be sent back. Below that, in even older writing, we did not build this lighthouse. We found it. The foundation is older than human memory. Whatever made the first pact with the things below, they are long gone. We are just maintainers now. Custodians of a bargain we don't fully understand. Follow the rules. Keep the light burning. Pray the pact holds. I looked out at the calm ocean, at the stars reflecting on gentle waves, and I knew what was really down there, beneath the peaceful surface. I radioed the mainland immediately, not Marty, the emergency frequency. This is Beacon Point. I need someone to research Dr. Emil Voss now. It took them an hour. When they called back, the coordinator's voice was grim. There is no Dr. Emil Voss. The name's an alias. The real person matching that description, his name is Marcus Voss. He's wanted for questioning in 3 incidents at lighthouses along the coast. All 3 involved keeper deaths. All 3 involved someone breaking protocol. My blood ran cold. What kind of incidents? In each case, someone claiming to be a researcher convinced the keeper to violate their station's rules. In each case, the keeper died within 48 hours. Marcus Voss was never at the stations. He did everything remotely. Radio, phone, no physical connection. What does he want? We don't know. But Michael, he usually makes multiple contact attempts. If he calls again, don't engage. We're sending a boat at dawn. They never got the chance. At 11:47 PJAS, the door appeared. Rule 9. If you see a door that wasn't there before, especially one that appears to lead outside from an inner wall, do not open it. Mark the time in the logbook and wait. It will be gone by morning. But this door was different from how others had described it. This door had a window, and through that window, I could see outside, except it wasn't the outside that should exist. It was somewhere else, somewhere older. I saw a shoreline that wasn't Widow's Finger, saw a lighthouse that wasn't quite this one, saw figures moving on those rocks, the standing figure, the tide walker, others I didn't recognize, all of them looking toward the door, toward me, and I understood they were keepers. Every person who'd ever broken Rule 9, they were trapped there in that other place, maintaining some other version of the protocol. The Tidewalker pressed her hand against the window. Her mouth moved. Don't open it. Then she was shoved aside. Something else appeared in the window. The thing I'd seen when I'd counted too many stairs, the thing with too many eyes. It smiled, knocked on the door 3 times. And from inside my walls, I heard knocking in response, dozens of sources all around me. Rule 5. If you hear knocking from inside the walls, knock back twice, then say aloud, not yet. But I hadn't knocked. The things in the walls were knocking on their own, answering the door. The door handle began to turn. I ran to the logbook, marking the time with shaking hands. 11:47 p.m. exactly. The same time Thomas Greer had marked in 1923. Then I saw it, his final entry, the one that had been torn out. Someone had tucked it into the back of the book. The paper was brittle, stained, but readable. 11:52 p.m. The door opened, not from my side, from theirs. Something came through. I've locked myself in the lantern room. It's down there now, climbing the stairs. I can hear it, but I realize something. Rule 6. If I count the stairs backwards, if I reach the wrong number, maybe I can shift away. Maybe I can move this lighthouse to one of the other versions. Trap it somewhere else. 11:58 p.m. I've done it. The lighthouse shifted. I'm in a different version now. But I'm stuck here. I can see my original lighthouse through the walls. I'm between them. The thing is still coming. It exists in all versions. But maybe I can hold it here long enough for the next keeper to seal the door from the other side. 12:03 a.m. Tell them to keep the light burning. That's all that matters. The light is the lock. As long as it burns, the door can be sealed. If it goes dark. The entry ended there, torn off mid-sentence. Below it, in different handwriting, Sarah Chen had written, I found this in the door frame when I arrived. Thomas saved us. He trapped himself between versions to give us time. The door sealed at dawn, but he's still there. They all are. Every keeper who broke Rule 9, maintaining the seal from the other side. I looked up. The door in my wall was fully open now, and beyond it I saw them, all the lost keepers, holding something back, fighting to keep the vast thing beneath from rising. They were losing. The radio crackled, Marcus Voss's voice. Michael, I know you're listening. I need you to let the light go out, just for 1 minute, 60 seconds. I need to see what happens. I need to know. I smashed the radio. Then I heard it. Footsteps on the stairs, heavy, wet, coming up from below. But they weren't coming from the stairwell. They were coming from the open door, from the other side. Something was crossing over. I had seconds to make a choice. I could run, try to make it to the causeway, hope the tide was low enough. But I'd seen what happened to keepers who abandoned their posts. The thing in the water would get them. I could follow the protocol, wait for dawn, hope the door closed on its own. But Thomas had waited. It hadn't saved him. Or I could do what no one had tried. I could seal the door myself. I grabbed the logbook and ran down the stairs, not counting, reciting the protocol instead. The footsteps from the door grew louder. Whatever was coming through was almost here. I reached the 2nd floor. The door was fully open, a threshold between versions of the lighthouse, between times, between the world where the seal held and the world where it had broken. Through the door, I saw Thomas Greer. He looked exactly like his photographs. young, exhausted, terrified. He saw me and shook his head desperately. "Don't cross," he shouted. "If you cross, you'll be trapped like us." "I know," I shouted back. "But maybe I can seal it from this side." "How?" I didn't know, but I remembered what Sarah Chin had written. "The light is the lock. Rule 1. Always Rule 1. I ran back up to the equipment room, grabbed a portable work light, the emergency backup we kept for bulb changes, ran back down. The thing from the deep was fully through now. I could hear it in the room, though I couldn't see it clearly. It existed partially outside normal space, a shadow that moved wrong. Too many limbs, too many joints. It turned toward me, and I felt its attention, like weight, like pressure, like drowning. I held up the work light, shone it directly at the door. The light hit the threshold and refracted, split into impossible angles, filled the door frame with illumination, and where the light touched the edges, I saw something forming, chains maybe, or symbols, or something my mind couldn't quite parse. The binding spell, made visible. The trapped keepers saw what I was doing. They understood. Thomas grabbed the door from his side. "Hold it steady," he yelled. "We'll pull from here." I braced myself, keeping the light focused on the threshold. The thing from the deep lunged at me, but the light seemed to hurt it, hold it back. The keepers pulled, I pushed. The door began to close. "The light," Thomas shouted. "When the door seals, you have to get the main light back on immediately. The work light isn't strong enough to hold the seal alone." "How long do I have?" "Seconds, maybe less." The door was almost shut. The thing from the deep made a sound, not a sound that should exist, a noise that hurt to hear, that made my nose bleed and my vision blur. 1 inch left. Half an inch. The door sealed with a sound like thunder. I dropped the work light and ran, up the stairs, not counting, just running. The thing from the deep was still here, in this version of the lighthouse, still partially through. I could hear it behind me, climbing, hunting. I reached the lantern room. The main light was burning steadily, as it always did, but I saw the backup generator's warning light blinking, fuel low. We had maybe an hour left before it needed refilling. An hour. I had to keep the thing contained for 1 hour, then get to the generator before the light failed. The generator room was on the first floor. To reach it, I'd have to go back down the stairs. Where the thing was waiting. I looked at my watch. 12:17 a.m. Sunrise wasn't until 5:43, 5.5 hours with a generator that had less than 1 hour of fuel. Then I remembered there were emergency fuel cans in the equipment room, 3rd floor. If I could get there, I could bring fuel up to the lantern room, wait out the night, then refill the generator after sunrise when what? When the thing went away? I looked out the windows. The ocean was churning now, black water rising again, that wall of liquid darkness climbing toward the sky. The vast thing beneath was awake, angry. The door had sealed, but something had gotten through, and now the balance was broken. I grabbed the radio headset, the one I hadn't smashed, and tried the emergency frequency. "This is Beacon Point. The protocol has been breached. I need help, now." Static. Then a voice, not the coordinator. Marcus Voss. "Michael, what did you do? How are you on this frequency? What did you do?" His voice was panicked now, the smooth academic veneer gone. "The readings, Jesus Christ, the readings are spiking all along the coast. Every lighthouse, every seal point. What happened? You happened. You made me break Rule 2. You. I didn't make you do anything. I asked you to run an experiment. He was breathing hard. But this is beyond any data we've seen. What came through? We? What the hell are you talking about? A pause. Then, the society. We study the seals, the old pacts. We've been trying to understand them for decades. Michael, listen carefully. Is the main light still burning? Yes. Don't let it fail. Whatever's in there with you, the light is the only thing keeping it from fully manifesting. How much fuel do you have? Less than an hour. Where's the reserve supply? Equipment room, 3rd floor. Can you reach it? I looked at the stairwell entrance, heard something moving down there. Breathing, wet breathing. Maybe. Then you have to try. The light cannot fail. If Beacon Point goes dark, the entire coastal array will destabilize. We'll have a cascade failure, 7 lighthouses, 7 seals breaking at once. Why should I trust you? You caused this. I made a mistake. His voice was quiet now, raw. I've been trying to prove the seals are just superstition, that we're bound by primitive rules we don't need anymore. I've been wrong. God help me. I've been so wrong. But I can help you fix this. I can guide you through. I wanted to refuse, to shut him out, but I was 23 years old, terrified and running out of time. Okay, I said. Tell me what to do. Voss walked me through it. The thing from the deep couldn't stand direct light. That much was clear, but it could exist in shadows, in the spaces between. The stairwell had both. You need a light source you can carry, Voss said, something bright enough to keep it back. The work light you used before, is it still functional? I dropped it on the 2nd floor. I think so. Get it. But Michael, don't look directly at the thing. Whatever made it through, it's not meant to exist in our dimensional space. Your brain will try to make sense of it and fail. People who look too long, they don't recover. What about the keepers, the ones trapped between versions? They're holding the door shut from their side, but they can't help with what got through. That's your problem now. I took a deep breath, started down the stairs, kept my eyes half closed, watching my feet, the steps, the railing, not looking into the shadows. I could hear it, smell it, salt and rot and something older, like prehistoric ocean, and I could feel it watching me. 2nd floor landing. The work light was there, still on, battery somehow still charged. I grabbed it, shone it down the stairwell. The thing pulled back from the light, retreating into a corner I couldn't quite focus on. I saw parts of it, too many limbs, surfaces that were wet and dry simultaneously, colors that didn't exist. My eyes started to bleed from trying to process it. I looked away, kept the light pointed toward it while I backed toward the equipment room. The fuel cans were where they should be, 3 of them full, enough for 15 hours of generator operation. But they were heavy. I could carry 1 at a time, maybe 2 if I was desperate. Voss, I said into the headset, I found the fuel. But I can't carry enough in one trip. I'll have to make multiple runs. How much fuel do you have left in the generator? I checked my watch. 40 minutes. Maybe less. Then you don't have time for multiple trips. You need to refill the generator directly. Now. That means going down to the first floor. I know. That thing is between me and the generator room. I know, Voss said again, but Michael, the light. It has to stay on, whatever it costs. I looked at the fuel cans, at the stairs, at the shadow that moved wrong. Then I remembered something. Rule 6. The stairs that extended when you counted them. The stairwell that existed in multiple versions simultaneously. Voss, what if I could shift versions? Move to a different iteration of the lighthouse where the thing isn't. What? Number. Don't. That's how keepers get trapped. That's how Thomas Greer bought time for the next keeper by shifting versions. What if I do the same? Shift just long enough to reach the generator, then shift back. You don't know how to control it. You could end up anywhere, any when. You have a better idea. Silence, then count backwards from 63. Don't stop, don't hesitate. And Michael, count to exactly 79. That's the echo version, the one closest to yours. Any further, and you might not find your way back. I picked up a fuel can, started down the stairs, started counting. 63, 64, 65. The stairwell began to stretch. The walls became translucent. I could see other versions of the lighthouse, other times overlapping. 68, 69, 70. The thing from the deep was still there, but now I could see others too, other entities, other keepers, all existing in the same space across different iterations. 75, 76, 77. I saw Duncan on the stairs. Not my Duncan, a Duncan from another time, another version. He saw me too, nodded once, stepped aside to let me pass. 79. The world snapped. I was still in the lighthouse, but it was different, older. The equipment was from decades ago, and the thing from the deep, it was gone from this version, not gone entirely. I could still sense it, existing in adjacent spaces, but not here, not now. I ran down to the generator room. The generator looked different, older model, different configuration, but the principle was the same. I poured in the fuel, watching the gauge rise, but as I poured, I realized the problem. This wasn't my generator. This fuel was going into a version of the lighthouse that existed in the past, or in a parallel iteration, or in some other state of reality. I'd made a terrible mistake. Voss, I shouted into the headset. Static. The radio wasn't connecting across versions. I was alone. I looked around the generator's room, desperate, and I saw it, scratched into the wall, fresh enough to be recent, old enough to be weathered. If you're reading this, you've shifted versions, trying to reach the generator. Don't panic. The fuel you add here will resonate across iterations. All versions of the lighthouse are connected at the foundation level. Fill the generator completely. Then count forward to 63. You'll return to your time. Thomas Greer, July 4th, 1923. He'd known. He'd left instructions. He'd been trying to save future keepers, even as he was dying. I filled the generator to capacity, checked the gauge, full. Then I started counting. 79, 78, 77. The lighthouse began to shift back. I saw flashes of different eras, the 1950s, the 1980s, the 2010s, saw other keepers at their posts, saw the thing from the deep in some versions, absent in others. 65, 64, 63. I snapped back to my version, my time. The generator room looked right again, and the gauge showed full. It had worked. The fuel had resonated across iterations, but the thing from the deep was here again, waiting, and it was angry. It lunged from the shadows, no longer held back by the work light, which I dropped during the shift. I ran, not for the stairs, I'd never make it, but for the door, the exterior door, the one that led to the rocks. Breaking Rule 7, going outside when something was calling. I burst through the door into the night. The ocean was chaos, black water, impossible waves, the sky churning with storm clouds that hadn't been there before. And on the rocks, I saw them, the figures, dozens of them, the standing figure, the tidewalker, others, all the entities that existed around the lighthouse, that were part of the old pact, the old rules. They turned to face me. The tidewalker stepped forward. You let something through. I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter. The seal is broken. The door is shut, but the thing that crossed over is still here. It's too late to send it back. Then what do I do? She looked at me with those dark, deep eyes. You do what Thomas Greer did. You trap yourself between versions, you and the thing. You hold it there until a new seal can be formed. That's a death sentence. Yes. The other figures nodded, confirming, agreeing. No, I said, there has to be another way. The standing figure spoke for the first time, its voice like wind through hollow spaces. The light must stay burning. You must stay with it. One keeper, one light, one eternal watch. That is the price. That is the rule that binds all other rules. I'm not doing that. I'm not spending eternity trapped between versions of a lighthouse. Then we all fall, the tidewalker said simply. Your lighthouse, then the others. 7 seals breaking in cascade, and what rises from the deep will consume the coast, then the continent, then everything. I looked back at the lighthouse. The light was burning steady now, fuel replenished, but I could see the thing moving inside, a shadow behind the windows searching for me, and I understood. It wasn't trying to put out the light. It was trying to become the light, to replace the seal with itself, to turn the ward into a beacon that called to the deep instead of holding it back. How long? I asked. If I trap myself with it, how long do I have to hold it? Until a stronger seal can be forged, the tidewalker said. Until the society, the ones who study these things, can repair what was broken. Could be years, could be decades, could be centuries. That's not an answer. It's the only answer. I looked at my watch. 3:47 a.m., less than 2 hours until dawn. In my pocket, my phone. Useless, no signal, but filled with photos from before. My family, my friends, my life, the life I was about to give up. If I do this, I said slowly, if I trap myself between versions, will I age? Will I die eventually, or will I just exist? Time moves differently between versions, the standing figure said. You will exist. But how you experience that existence, we cannot say. That's terrifying. Yes, the tidewalker agreed, it is. Behind me, inside the lighthouse, I heard glass breaking. The thing was getting more aggressive, more desperate. I had minutes, maybe, before it reached the lantern room, before it touched the light. I made my decision. I went back inside, not to fight the thing. You can't fight something that exists partially outside reality, but to contain it. The entities from the rocks followed me. They couldn't enter the lighthouse. That wasn't permitted by the old rules, but they stood at the threshold, witnesses to what came next. I found the thing on the third floor, trying to climb the last stairwell to the lantern room. When it sensed me, it turned. And this time, I looked at it, really looked. It was beautiful and terrible, a being from deep time, from deep water, from a place where the rules of physics were just suggestions. It wasn't evil. It didn't have the framework for human morality. It was just other, completely, fundamentally other, and it wanted to go home. That's what I understood in that moment. It wasn't trying to destroy. It was trying to return to the deep, but the seal prevented that. And in its desperation, it was willing to break everything. "I'm sorry," I told it, not sure if it could understand, "but I can't let you break the seal. Too many people will die." It made that sound again, the one that caused nosebleeds and blurred vision. I think it was trying to communicate, or maybe just expressing frustration, rage, despair. I grabbed the logbook, opened to a blank page, took out my knife and cut my palm. Not a pinprick this time, but a real cut. Blood flowed freely. I wrote, Michael James Rivera, August 8th, 3:54 a.m., Rule 10. If the seal breaks, if something comes through, one keeper must remain to hold it. One light must keep burning. One watch must be eternal. I choose to stay. I pressed my bloody palm to the page, felt something shift. The logbook was warm, pulsing, alive. It wasn't just paper and ink. It was part of the spell, part of the seal, and now I was too. I started counting, backwards from 63, but this time I didn't stop at 79. I kept going. 85, 90, 100. The lighthouse fractured around me. I saw dozens of versions simultaneously, past, present, future, alternate, saw myself in all of them, saw the thing from the deep in all of them. 120, 135. The thing realized what I was doing, tried to stop me, but I was already shifting, already moving between states of existence. 150. And then I was everywhere and nowhere, trapped between all possible versions of Beacon Point Lighthouse. I could see my original timeline, see the sun rising over calm waters at 5:43 a.m. exactly. See Marty arriving with supplies at 7 a.m. See him find the lighthouse empty except for the logbook, open to my final entry. But I couldn't reach that timeline. I was suspended in the spaces between. And the thing from the deep was suspended with me. We were trapped together, keeper and kept, guard and prisoner, forever bound in the dimensions between moments. Time is different here. I've been between versions for 7 years, but also 7 minutes, but also 7 decades, all simultaneously. I experience every moment of every iteration of the lighthouse at once. I see the new keeper who replaced me. Her name is Jordan. She's following the protocol perfectly. She doesn't know I'm still here, in the walls, in the gaps between seconds. I see Duncan, not old, but young, just starting his first year in 1997. I see Sarah Chen discovering Thomas Greer's body. I see Thomas Greer writing his final entry, the one that saved me. And I see forward. I see the society, Voss's group, working to forge a new seal. They're slow, cautious, learning from their mistakes. They think they have 20 more years before they can attempt it. I can wait. I have to wait. The thing from the deep has stopped fighting me. We've reached an understanding, it and I. We're both trapped, both far from home. We share the long watch together. Sometimes, when new keepers are struggling, when they're tempted to break the rules, I try to help. I knock in the walls at 9:47 to remind them. I make the phantom door appear so they remember Rule 9. I can't speak, can't write, can't directly intervene, but I can maintain the protocol from this side. I am the lighthouse now, not the building, the concept, the eternal watch, the light that never goes dark. Marcus Voss visits the lighthouse sometimes. He stands on the rocks and speaks into the wind, knowing I might hear. He apologizes, explains their progress, promises they'll free me eventually. I don't know if I want to be freed anymore. My family thinks I disappeared. The official report says I had a mental break, walked into the ocean during a storm. My mother still visits the coast every August, stands on the mainland, and looks toward Widow's Finger. I can see her. I watch over her. She doesn't know. That's the hardest part, not the isolation, not the impossible existence between moments, but knowing everyone I love thinks I'm dead, and I can never tell them otherwise. But I chose this. I chose to stay, because the alternative was worse. The light still burns. The seal still holds. The things in the deep remain below. And I remain here, in the spaces between, keeping the eternal watch. That's my story. That's what happened at Beacon Point Lighthouse in the summer when I was 23 years old. And if you're listening to this, if somehow this recording reached you across the gap between worlds, then remember, some rules exist. For reasons we can't see, some lights must never go dark. Some watches must be eternal. And somewhere, in every lighthouse along the coast, in every structure built on old foundations, in every place where ancient pacts still hold, someone is standing guard, someone is keeping the watch, someone is making sure the things below stay below. Maybe it's me, maybe it's Thomas Greer, maybe it's keepers whose names we've forgotten, who've been standing guard for centuries, trapped between versions of reality we can't perceive, but they're there, we're there, keeping the light burning. Forever. Before I close this story, I want to leave you with something, a question I've had 7 years, or 7 decades, to consider. What if there are other protocols, other rules we're following without knowing why? What if the world is full of old pacts, ancient agreements, bindings we maintain just by living our daily lives? When you avoid cracks in the sidewalk, when you knock on wood, when you throw salt over your shoulder, are these just superstitions, or are they fragments of older rules, older protections, worn down by time until we've forgotten why we do them? I used to think I understood the world. Now, I know the world is much stranger, much older, and much more carefully balanced than we realize. The lighthouse was just one seal. The protocol was just one set of rules. But there are others, 7 along this coast alone, and more beyond that, hundreds, maybe thousands, all maintained by people who chose to stay, who chose the watch. So here's my question for you. If you found yourself in my position, if you discovered a rule that seemed arbitrary, but breaking it meant disaster, would you follow it, even if you didn't understand why? Even if it cost you everything? Would you keep the light burning? I'd like to know what you think. Leave your answer in the comments. And if you've ever encountered something that made you question the rules of reality, a place that felt wrong, a rule that seemed to matter for no reason, a moment when you glimpsed something between the cracks of the world, share that story too. Because maybe, just maybe, if we collect enough of these stories, we can start to understand the bigger picture, the full protocol, the complete set of rules that keep our world from unraveling. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about the spaces between, the rules we don't understand, the watches we keep without knowing, subscribe to this channel, join our community, become part of the Watch Yourself. Because someone needs to remember, someone needs to keep telling these stories, someone needs to make sure the knowledge doesn't fade. That's what I do now, from between the moments. I whisper these stories to people who listen, who'll share them, who'll remember. And maybe, if enough people remember, the next keeper won't have to stay forever. Maybe the next keeper can come home. Thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping watch with me. Until next time, keep your lights burning.